Okay. Do you have control of that, Mayor, or is it? Okay, I'll wait. Yeah.
I'll try this. Computer's acting up.
There we go. Should be good. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry about that. I had the presentation loaded, I thought earlier, and I ran to my daughter's meet the teachers. So I tried to meet 7 teachers in 20 minutes. So um, didn't work out. Met 4 of them. So I had to come back. Mayor and Council, I'd like to kind of read a statement as I've done before, kind of revisiting some of the stuff that we talked about when I provided the proposed budget. But what I wanted to cue in on in the theme of this budget from city manager proposed, the council proposed again is what's been depicted on the budget cover, and that's to highlight and showcase our city service and our employees on the cover there. I think that means a lot for what we do here for our team and the employees. I want to thank Mayor and Council for taking the measures to address our employees over the last 2 years. Again, that was very helpful, like I mentioned earlier, with the recruitment of police officers. The effort to change the retirement system and the need to address our police staffing levels with the salary modification this year has helped, like I mentioned, immensely with recruitment in order to bring those staffing levels back to the police department to what residents demand and expect here in Castle Hills. The change in the retirement system ensures that we can compete and retain talented employees, not just in police and fire, but the entire organization. Over the last 2 years, the budget process, the city council has made changes in compensation, reviewed other areas of compensation to compete with surrounding cities. And this is not only in police and fire, but public works as well. As a result, this has impacted operational expenses, but works to sustain good city services and managing to keep and retain employees, which is key. Every budget is an attempt to balance current and future needs within the framework of limited resources, and the year's budget has constructed within those guidelines. The proposed budget sustains our excellent city operation services, includes operational expenses and changes from FY23. Adopted budget to the 9-month budget proposed 24 budget incorporates our debt model, includes capital needs towards improving the city infrastructure related to streets and drainage. I wish to extend my appreciation to the city council for your work, input, and direction on this proposed budget and taking the time to attend all the meetings since July. This includes the review of budget documents and the continued guidance working towards adoption here tonight. This 9-month budget obviously has not been easy. We've had to drill down to make sure that we have operational expenses covered, not only from revenue, but expenses itself for the 9 months. The goal of the 9-month budget was to have a fiscal year that starts on October 1st and end on September 30th, and ultimately align it with the tax rate each year. This change in the fiscal year has been a directive by City Council to me as city manager. Next year, the City Council's FY25 budget will start on October 1st, 2024 and end on September 30th, 2025, as requested by the City Council over the last couple of years. I also want to express my appreciation to the entire city staff, our leadership team for their work during the budget process. This would obviously involve Chief Zuniga and Chief Ladwig, Mr. Harada, Mr. Zamarone, and Ms. Zelenek. I appreciate everyone's work on the department budgets and appreciate their dedication on hard work and striving to maintain the highest level of service to the citizens and businesses of our community. I would also like to recognize Ms. Davis as our fiscal officer. She's been involved in every aspect from proposed city manager budget to council budget proposed as presented tonight. And I appreciate your hard work and efforts on this budget. We have a great team here in Castle Hills, Mayor and Council. Again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for all your leadership, your work and guidance as we move forward through the budget process, and would now like to turn over to you the FY24 Council proposed budget for adoption tonight. I'll go back over real quick some of the slides we've reviewed during the process. On the city manager proposed, we had it at 5,982,000. Department and program cost budget at a reasonable level for the 9 months. No additional personnel, no cost of living at the time, no increase to the current cost of healthcare. We captured American Rescue Plan funds for fire and safety equipment under the fire department, and concludes a tax rate of 5.43658, M&O 47345, and an INS of 0.70213, which is below the voter approval rate of 577,514. And at the time, we were on the positive side of revenue, 234,383. Highlights of the council proposed budget. Now the total is 6,216,921 over the 9 months. Again, January 1st, 24 through September 30th, 24. No additional personnel, no increased costs. Healthcare captures the ARPA funding one time for the fire and safety equipment. Same proposed tax rate, includes a 4.5 cost of living adjustment for employees, increases the wage to $19 per hour for the entry-level position for Public Works. We set aside $24,000 for the replacement of 3 overhead doors at the fire station. And then in the contingency fund, we're able to put in the Public Works Ford F-350 field truck and crew cab. Again, that's in the contingency fund, not within the general fund. Just back on the tax rate overview, as demonstrated on chart below, including the INS rate, which funds the amount that we have to pay the city debt, the increase of 0.402352 from tax year 22. Sorry, that screen's in there. Which funds the functions of the general fund. The M&O rate actually will go down by 0.007382 for the 2023 tax year, voter approved if adopted. Due to the issuance of new debt, the INS is a driving force in the increase, along with the changes we made in operational expenses for salaries in the police department and then the retirement system. Series 20 and 23 now impact the debt payments. So we have 2 payments as a result that now impact the INS. And then the city issued those obligations to pay for streets and drainage capital projects. And then the street payment comes from the INS portion of that. Just looking back again, historical versus current. The tax rate in 2018, 0.501345. Last year, the adopted tax rate was 5.0688. And then, of course, when we originally proposed the budget last year, it was 0.52445. And then this year's proposed is 0.544345. As directed by City Council last week, September 5th, you had requested that I look into the cost of living adjustment, no less than 3.5, and then work to elevate the level of the hourly entry level wage for Public Works, and then try to find the money for the 3 overhead doors, and then again, the field truck under the contingency fund. And then that graphic there shows you a breakdown of what you get for $1. 40 cents of that almost goes to police, and 28 cents is fire. So, essentially almost 70 cents of your dollar goes towards public safety. And then the other breakdowns accordingly there. Any questions, Mayor, Council? Just real quick, we talked about the COLA as well. I went through the survey last week, and in comparing 3 or 4 cities in our area that we usually compete with, being Alamo Heights 4.5, Chavano Park 5%, Selma 4%, Schertz 4.7, and Helotes 5%. Those are important cities because we compete for police officers as well from those cities. So I was hoping to target between 4 and 5%. And so in order to land on 4.5 to be able to do the public works and set aside money for the doors at the fire department. So that was the rationale coming to the 4.5. We also, from a historical standpoint, for the COLA, last year, I think it was 4%. Year before was 2%. And then 2020, it was 0%. So I hope by getting the 4.5% from COLAs, we're kind of on par and trying to compete, if not above, some cities that we look to compete with for employees moving forward. So Mayor and Council, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rappling. Council, do we have any questions, comments, motions? Mr. Joyce, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. It's certainly Mr. Rappling and his team should be commended for this. I know this is probably the most challenging thing you guys do all year, so thank you for that. You've done a terrific job. It's kind of a reality check because it's a bigger budget than we've ever had before. In a 12-month budget, it's probably 8 million plus or minus, which is a lot more, but we know why. We understand why. There really weren't a lot of choices involved, and I think we've begun to see the fruits of that even this evening as Chief introduced 4 new officers. So anyway, I believe that it's a good budget, and I'm in favor of it. I think it addresses staff salary and benefits in a manner that keeps us competitive with other cities. It assures the continuation of our streets and drainage work as planned in the CIP, and it gets us on that 9-month budget to align with the other entities. So that being the case, I move that we accept the budget as presented by Mr. Rappling.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce.
Second.
Second by Mr. May.
Can we have that motion include the adoption of the ordinance?
Sure.
Thank you.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 2023-09-12-C to adopt fiscal year 2024 operating budget for the city of Castle Hills.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
second
Joyce.
the-
You second the second? Any further discussion?
Mark, does that to be a record vote?
Yes, you need a record roll call vote. You'll ask the city secretary to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Schnell. Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate all your time that you've spent in these meetings and with us as staff. So, Mr. Joyce, it is not an overnight process. There's a lot of work in between going back with drafts of this budget and working and reworking the numbers by Miss Davis. But what I can tell you is, when we start the process or when the city starts the process next year for the FY25 budget, it's moving us into a more transparent and especially aligning from an accounting perspective, being with the tax rate. It's very important, and you can see why, we're probably one of the last to do this, but you have more months to figure out what you've spent as well. You know what I mean? Because most cities who do a fiscal calendar October 1st, they're able to do a 3+3, 3+6, and a 3+9. So you can see exactly what you've spent, and it helps you better prepare the proposed budget moving forward. Gives you a little more time as well. So I know that's a goal of council, and obviously by adopting this budget, it will get us there next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rappling. And next up, we have a discussion of possible action on by record vote ordinance number 2023-09-12-D to adopt the 2023 tax rate for the city of Castle Hills. Mr. Rappling?
Again, Mayor and Council, as I covered during the budget, the tax rate is based on the 0.544345. I don't know if I need to go back and illustrate the slides that were included on there to show the breakdown, the M&O and the INS. But again, as I mentioned, the issuance of the new debt and current debt has created obviously a larger INS, and that's less we pull from an M&O. Obviously, the M&O is slightly below than last year. But the increase is mainly due to, again, the debt and the operational expenses that we've done for police and the retirement. That's what's made this change as far as moving forward. But I think there's a motion that needs to be said verbatim. I think Mr. Schnall can walk you through that. So if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rapley. Mr. May,
Mr. Mayor, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.543658, which is effectively an 11.108% increase in the tax rate, and adopt ordinance number 2023-09-12-D.
thank you, Mr. May. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Daines. Thank you. Any discussion? Ms. Franco?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you, Council. Mr. Rapley?
Thank you, council.
Okay, next up, we have discussion of possible action on a motion to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 2024 budget. Mr. Rapley?
Thank you, Mayor Council. Obviously, as part of voting on the tax increase, there's a ratification process. What Ms. Davis has handed out is what Mr. Schnall has put together in regards to this. Because we are doing a 9-month budget, we wanted to make sure that we are captured from the language here for this motion. And I'll have Mr. Schnall kind of walk you through it as well. Mr. Schnall.
The chapter 102 of the local government code requires the council to take a separate vote. It is not a roll call vote, so Ms. Franco is off the hook on that. It's just a regular vote to ratify any tax increase that's reflected in the adopted budget. If this were a 12-month budget, there would be a actual tax increase. This is not a 12-month budget. This is a 9-month budget, as Mr. Rapley has explained, and it carries out the mandate that was handed to Mr. Rapley by a former council to get the city of Castle Hills in line with most other local governments, to have a fiscal year that runs from October 1 through September 30, rather than a calendar year, which is what Castle Hills has been on for as long as Mr. Rapley can remember. So I felt that we should have a action item on the agenda and propose the the motion wording that I believe Ms. Davis handed out. To the extent that adoption of the 9-month fiscal year 2024 budget might be construed to raise more revenue from property taxes than in the previous year, I move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal 2024 budget. And that would keep us in line with the spirit of the local government code, chapter 102, which is the section of the chapter in the local government code that's all about the municipal budget. So I recommend that someone make this motion, someone second it, and it be adopted. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Thank you, Mr. Schnall. Ms. Daines?
To the extent that adoption of the 9-month fiscal year 2024 budget might be construed to raise more revenue from property taxes than in the previous year, I move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 2024 budget.
Thank you, Ms. Daines. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schnall. Next up, we have discussion of possible action on authorizing the city to engage Half Engineering to perform inspection and testing services for the 2023 street improvement project and authorizing the city manager to sign such an engagement. Mr. Rappel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, Council. This item is what we've done in the past for our street reconstruction work. Obviously, we have one engineer do the design work, and then we have another that does the observation and inspecting. With the first two street project phases we've done, we had Ardura do the design and RPS do the observation, testing, and inspection. Since we have new engineers, half will be doing the inspection, observation, and testing services of the upcoming street project, which begins here next week. They have a proposal in there and I passed it out for a cost. This is obviously, they believe it would be about 10 hours a week over the duration, roughly about 69,000. This is closely on par with the last two proposals RPS did in the first two phases. So I'm city manager, I'm good with the proposal. Like I said, they'll be checking Ardura's work. They'll be checking the contractor's work as we move forward over the next 9 months with these 10 streets.
Thank you, Mr. Rapley. Mr. Joyce.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a lot of money and $69,000 in change, but I think it's an insurance policy that's well worth it. As Mr. Rapley said, they're going to be out there quite a lot. It's a 9-month process roughly. And if they spend 10 hours a week, that's quite a lot of time. But I do believe this is worth it. So I move that we authorize the city to engage Half Engineering to perform inspection and testing services for the 2023 street improvement project and authorize the city manager to sign such agreement.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce, and seconded by Mr. May. Any discussion? Mr. Rapley, just to be certain, this was already included in the scope of the budget to ensure that we have sufficient funds?
Yeah, this is part of design, construction, and then testing and inspection services, just like we did with the first two phases, which we did the 14, 15 streets on that one.
Perfect. And this is all part of the 2023
Yes.
dollars, correct?
And if you go back and look, I think RPS is for the first phase, the price was, I think, about 60,000. And I think they were out there about 9 hours. So it could be a shorter duration per week, depending on what work is being done by the contractor on that time on that street. So it might not be all 69,000 here. It could actually be, it's not a lump sum, so they'll do it hourly. So it could be a smaller amount by the time they get done.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Rapley. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, council. Okay, next up, we have announcements by mayor and council members on items of community interest. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind everybody that the concert in the Commons is on the 23rd. That's not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. And looking at the weather, it looks possible that we might get rain. So I hope everybody gets rain. And if you feel like it, please pray to the deity of your choice that we get it. And if you don't want to pray, that's cool too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Haley.
Last Thursday, I went to the Texas Municipal League regional meeting out at the Schertz Convention Center, or whatever they call it. But anyway, a group of people, municipalities, elected officials, and city executives from around this region. And I got to tell you that putting on that Castle Hills embroidered shirt with our logo and people identify that I was on Team Castle Hills, and the response that I got and the respect that our city has among that community, it makes me proud in the very best way to be representing this city. And the comments that I heard about our city manager from people that have known him for years, we have so much to be grateful for in having a real executive and someone that has the experience and the knowledge that Mr. Rapley has. And I want to thank you, Mr. Rapley, for that. And I also need to remind you, October 3rd, National Night Out, the buzz is starting, and the Commons should be humming, and so should several neighborhood gatherings. And so I'm looking forward to that and having our community reconnect locally and then also to the wider community at the Commons. So thank you for that, Chief.
Thank you, Ms. Haley. Mr. May.
Just a couple of reminders. This coming Saturday, we have the cutting at Clear Light Coffee, which is on Northwest Military Highway. So get your fill of coffee and then come right here in this place for the Castle Hills Historical Society kickoff the new season. And we should have a lively discussion, but drink your coffee.
Thank you, Mr. May. Mr. Joyce. Ms. Daines.
Yes, just to clarify, the Clear Light Coffee grand opening ribbon cutting is at 9 a.m. and the Historical Society meeting is at 10:30. And if you haven't yet, if you are intending to sign up to host a national night out, please reach out to Chief Zunigan or our police force to get signed up.
Thank you, Ms. Daines. Council, I just want to congratulate you on passing a great budget, and what I believe to be a great budget. We've given some money back to the city. We've given money back to the employees, which I believe are deserving of it. It's no small feat. I also want to share some good news. I hate to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the county adopted their budget today. And in there was, I believe it was $1 million,
1.2 for us.
$1.2 million to go towards our Carrollwood improvements. We can clap. That has been a long time coming, and, kind of testament to what Ms. Haley said, that this city that we're living in right now is a little bit different than it was several years ago. And I'm glad that our partners at Bear County see that as well. And so by Thursday, the city of San Antonio should adopt their budget, which should also include a sizable amount of investment that will go a part of making the Carrollwood project complete all the way up past Lock Hill Selma, which has been a thorn in our side for the residents, for anybody that lives, works, or our first responders who have lost a fire truck and police car over there as well. So I think all that to say that we're doing stuff right here. And aside from feeling that sense of pride, I think that our colleagues see it, and which is why they're choosing to invest in us. So thank you all so much. And thank you to the residents for giving us the support that you all have, because the November approval to proceed with the 2023 improvements was really a large indicator to the city of San Antonio and to the county that not only was the council ready to do the work, but the residents were ready to put their part in as well. Thank you. Mr. Rapley.
No, I just, to touch on that, obviously, if it comes to fruition in San Antonio, that'll be solely to address Lock Hill from San Antonio's part.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, Mayor Nuremberg shared that they would not be able to fund drainage inside Castle Hills, so it was structured in such a way that they're specifically funding Lock Hill and the drainage basin. And so we gladly said thank you. Council, I entertain a motion to
But Mayor,
adjourn.
Council, just real quick. So we have our shredding event next month, October 14th. And then we have our bulk drop off November 4th. And then tomorrow we have our groundbreaking at 9 a.m. for phase 3 of our street improvements off of Persimmons. Thank you.
Council, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. May,
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith, all in favor? Unanimous. It is 7:16. Meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you for being here with us.